step worth taking. If the path we face is the one God's making, when He says go, we won't be alone. Let's take a leap of faith.
Welcome to the Tales of Zeke and Elliot, parables worth pondering. Best friends Zeke and Elliot are two frogs that have many adventures around Bicker's Pond. I'm Leah. Come with me as we unfold today's story, Mrs. Mouse's Messy House. Mrs. Mouse pulled on her robe and quietly slid on her slippers, trying to be as quiet as, well, a mouse, so she didn't wake the little ones. The small field mouse looked around her home, which was normally clean and tidy. She felt overwhelmed by the mess she saw. From the corner, she gathered 2 large bags of laundry for Mrs. Badger and 1 small bag for Mr. Marvin. As she carried them to the kitchen, she had to walk under laundry that was hanging crisscrossed around the room drying.
Oh dear, this is such a mess. I can't stand this chaos. I sure will be glad when Mr. Mouse returns.
Mr. Mouse had been on the road traveling for 2 weeks this time. A few months ago, the field plant where Mr. Mouse worked closed down and he had to find a new job. As a traveling salesman, he was getting less money and working more hours, with little time to spend with his family. To make up the difference, Mrs. Mouse had been taking in laundry. Now, however, she was on her feet most of the day, bending over a wash tub. She couldn't keep up with her own laundry, let alone the housework. Just then, she heard the soft sounds of little feet approaching.
Mama, is it time to wake up for school?
Good morning, little one. Almost, but how about you and I enjoy a little glass of milk together before your siblings wake up?
Just you and me, Mama?
Just you and me.
Mrs. Mouse moved to the small refrigerator and reached inside for a pitcher of milk. She noticed that there were toys left inside, no doubt by the little hands searching for snacks.
Good gracious, I can't escape the mess even in here.
When Mrs. Mouse closed the refrigerator and turned around, she saw 6 fresh new faces staring at her from the small table.
Good morning, Mama.
Good morning, my sweets. Did you sleep well?
Yes, ma'am. Is Daddy coming home soon? I miss him.
Yes, he is. He may be home today. Now everyone get in your chairs and I'll get your breakfast ready. Then you're off to see Miss Cleo at daycare.
We love Miss Cleo.
After Mrs. Mouse returned from dropping off the little ones, she put a pot of water on to boil. While that was heating up, she grabbed some empty baskets to take down the dry laundry. She moved to her ironing board and sat the iron on the stove to heat up. She donned a fresh apron and began to take the garments from the baskets and iron them into crisp, starched linen. She hummed a little tune, trying to ignore the mess she saw around her.
Lord, I sure could use a day or 2 to get this all straightened out. I just need a little bit of time. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up.
Mrs. Mouse scampered quickly through the woods on her way to deliver the fresh laundry. The kids would be finished with daycare soon, and she still had 1 bundle of laundry to deliver. And worse, it was to Mrs. Badger. No doubt she would find fault with something again. Mrs. Mouse didn't have time to lend an ear to her complaints and soothe her grumbling. She was running late for the 3rd time this week. There didn't seem to be enough hours in the day to get all of her work done.
Mrs. Badger, I have your laundry. I'll just place it out here on the porch. No need to come to the door.
No, dear. I've been watching for you. I need to inspect my things. Make sure it's all there and accounted for.
Of course, Mrs. Badger, but it's all there and I really need to hurry. I have to pick up my children from preschool.
It's a very simple solution, you know. Time management. Perhaps you need to work on that.
You are so right. And speaking of time, I really must go.
Mrs. Mouse made it to the daycare just in time to get her little ones before closing. Their sweet voices greeted her as she approached.
Hi, Mama. Look what we made. I drew this for you.
Oh, wow. You're all so talented.
Can you hang it up at home? Mine too. I drew a picture of you and me. So did I.
As each pup declared theirs the best, the little family made their way back home. They passed Zeke and Elliot fishing at their favorite spot.
Hey, Mrs. Mouse. Look, my new patch is holding up great.
I see that, but it looks like you've made a new hole. Stop by the house later to drop them off and I'll take care of it.
I'll do that. Elliot and I'll bring the string of fish for you.
We sure will. We've caught a whole mess today. Hey, little mice.
Hi, Mr. Elliot. Hi, Mr. Zeke.
Hey, pups.
Come along now, little ones. We need to get home and get dinner ready before Daddy gets home.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm home. Dinner smells delicious. Where are my pups?
Daddy, you're home.
Welcome home, sweetheart.
After dinner, Mr. Mouse read a book to the children, and Mrs. Mouse sat down at the sewing machine to repair a seam in one of Mrs. Badger's lace curtains. She then finished another load of laundry and moved to her favorite comfy chair. She took out her sewing kit to patch up the newest hole in Zeke's jeans. Her eyelids began to feel very heavy. She blinked a few times and tried to thread the needle once more.
The children are all asleep and tucked in. I think I'll have a glass of warm milk and then head to bed. I made 6 stops on my way home today.
What? Oh, I'm so sorry, dear. What did you say?
I was just saying I made a few stops on my way home. One of them was to Mrs. Badger. That lady could talk the legs off a caterpillar.
She sure can. Would you like me to warm up some milk for you?
No, I'll do it. Would you like a glass?
Oh, that would be nice. Thank you. I want to finish this patch for Zeke and get a load of laundry washed before I head to bed myself.
I'm sorry you've had to take all of this on. I've been praying for a new job to open up.
I'm sure it will soon. I'm happy to do it.
Mr. Mouse went to the kitchen and warmed the milk. He took his wife a glass and placed it on the table beside her, kissed her lightly on the forehead, and said good night. The next morning, Mr. Mouse woke up, and Mrs. Mouse was already out of bed preparing for the day. Or so he thought. He went to see if he could help with breakfast, but as he entered the living room, he heard the quietest snore. Mrs. Mouse was asleep in her comfy chair with a needle and thread in her hand. There was laundry crisscrossing the room once again.
Papa, did Mama fall asleep in her chair?
Shh, yes, it looks like it. She's exhausted. She's been working hard to take care of all of us.
Mama makes us breakfast and cleans our clothes. And washes our faces. She takes us to preschool. And picks us up from preschool. She looks at our pictures and makes us snacks.
Yes, she does, 'cause she loves us all so much. What can we do for Mama?
We should cover the window so it could be dark.
That's an excellent idea. Then it will feel like nighttime to Mama.
I'm hungry, Papa. Me too.
I am too. Let's cover up the windows and head to the Crispy Bark for some breakfast.
Yay!
Shh, not so loud.
The pups helped their papa cover the windows with some extra sheets. When the little group stepped outside their den, they almost ran smack into Zeke and Elliot, who were coming to drop off their laundry.
Good morning, everyone.
Shh, Mama's sleeping. She fell asleep in her chair. We're going to the Crispy Bark for breakfast.
She is?
She did?
You are?
She was up all night working and fell asleep in her chair. We wanted to give her some quiet time.
We covered up the windows so she would still think it was nighttime.
What a great idea.
Would you like us to help out? We could gather everyone at the Crispy Bark to discuss a plan. Mrs. Mouse has patched more holes in my jeans than I can count.
And she taught me how to tie my bow tie.
That would be wonderful. Thank you both. I'll head on over to the bark, get the pups fed, and see you when you get there.
Zeke and Elliot invited anyone they could to come to the meeting. They finished talking with Dr. Bard and were going to make their last stop when they saw Mrs. Badger. The two frogs froze, then quickly made a decision on who would do the talking.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
By a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock beats scissors. You're up.
You owe me, Zeke. Hello, Mrs. Badger. Out for an early stroll?
Does it look like I'm strolling, young Elliot? I'm on a cane and my back is hunched over. I don't stroll anymore.
Of course, ma'am. I apologize for that.
How about you stop apologizing and just get out of the way? You two may have time to waste, but I don't. I'm on a tight schedule. Now, close your mouths or you're gonna catch flies. Time's a-wastin'.
That's just it, Mrs. Badger. Elliot and I were on our way to your house to ask for your assistance. Mrs. Mouse needs our help.
You don't need to tell me that. I've got a schedule all written out for her. I'm on my way to drop it off at her house now. She's gonna run herself into the ground.
Oh, no. You can't go there. She's asleep.
Asleep? At this time of day? Land's sakes, it's worse than I thought.
Mr. Mouse and the pups were hoping to let her get some sleep by making her feel like it's nighttime. We're trying to get her friends to help. We're wondering if you could participate by,
Stop your yapping and lead the way. I know what I need to do.
How? What?
Catching flies, boys, catching flies.
The two frogs closed their gaping mouths and hurried after the elderly badger. Back at the crispy bark, Mr. Mouse looked around in amazement at the gathering crowd. Mr. Marvin pulled him aside for a private word as Zeke quieted the room.
All right, everyone, let me get y'all's attention. Hey, simmer down over there. I need everyone to be quiet, please. Listen up, y'all. Come on. Thank you for coming, everyone. You all know why we're here, to help our beloved Mrs. Mouse. She keeps everything and everyone shipshape around here.
I see she's added another patch to your jeans, Zeke.
That's exactly what I mean. She keeps us looking our best and lends a helping hand at any time it's needed. As you all know, Mr. Mouse has been traveling a lot lately, providing for his family. Mr. Marvin has an announcement he would like to make before we move on.
Thank you. The grounds around Bickus Pond and our primary school have been left unattended for some time now, as we have sought a new pond ranger. I am pleased, ecstatic really, to announce that Mr. Mouse will be assuming this position promptly.
Thank you all so much. It's such a great honor.
Oh, well, wow.
Well, young Zeke, you're catching flies again. Tell us what's next.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Badger. Yes, so why are we all here? Well, it's to help out Mrs. Mouse.
You already said that.
Yes, thank you again. We're here to formulate a plan to help her. Elliot has an itinerary for helpers outside the house. For inside the house, Mrs. Badger has kindly offered her services and has a detailed...
And a plan was set. The cricket band was scheduled to play their gig just after Dr. Bard hooted her night song. Mrs. Badger scheduled the laundry to be washed and hung to dry. A charm of hummingbirds fluttered around, using their wings to dry it faster. Mr. Marvin's students were given a list to deliver the clean laundry to their drop-offs. Ruby scrubbed the kitchen and fried up the fish that Zeke and Elliot had dropped by. The grasshopper watched in amazement as Mrs. Badger patiently showed the children how to set the table. The little pups loved her firm but kind way of doing things.
Now, little ones, I think your work here is done. I believe I see your mama stirring. If I can get those two young whippersnappers to escort me, I'll head home. It's getting dark outside.
Ma'am, what's a whippersnapper?
Never you mind. Just remember to respect your elders just like your mama taught you.
Bye, Mrs. Badger. We love you.
Mrs. Badger wiped a tear from her eye. Zeke and Elliot were courteously waiting outside to accompany her home. They had seen the sweet exchange between the crotchety badger and the mouse pups. Zeke bowed to the lady who had helped save the day, and Elliot removed his cap and offered his arm.
Mrs. Badger, may we have the pleasure of walking you home this evening? It would be a great honor.
Now, don't get silly with me, you tadpoles. I heard you playing that game earlier to see who had to talk to me. My eyes may be bad, but my ears work as good as they ever did. Get over here, and each of you give me an arm. We'll take a stroll together.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Mouse suddenly jerked with a start, realizing she didn't know what time or day it was.
What time is it?
Mama, you're awake. Look what we did. Dinner's ready. The house is clean. The laundry's done. Papa got a new job. He's the pond ranger.
How long have I been asleep? Did you all do this?
While the little family gathered around the table for dinner, Mr. Mouse and the pups told Mrs. Mouse how their community had pitched in.
And you're the new pond ranger? How wonderful.
We folded the laundry and Mrs. Badger said you were a good lady.
She did?
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of the Tales of Zeke and Elliot. Our story is based on Proverbs 31, verses 27 through 31. She watches over the activities of her household and is never idle. Her sons rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Many women are capable, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. Give her the reward of her labor, and let her works praise her at the city gates.
Welcome to Insightful Information with Kelly and Candy.
Each episode, we'd like to share some insightful information about the creatures or environment from our story.
Did you know that mice babies are called pinkies or pups and can be found in nearly every country on Earth?
They also love to eat and can have as many as 20 meals per day.
Wow, I enjoy cooking, but not that much.
Poor Mrs. Mouse.
Speaking of food, I could eat.
Me too. I wouldn't mind if you cooked a meal for me.
Or you cooked a meal for me.
Well, kids, that's our insightful information for today. See you next time.
Wait. We didn't discuss the meal. Who's cooking for who?
How about we go out? I have coupons.
Thanks for listening today. Parents, if you could go rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, it really helps us to find new audience members to listen to the tales of Zeke and Elliot. We'll see you next time, and until then, when God leads, don't be afraid to take your next leap of faith.